Are you ready to view Ireland from something other than a motorized vehicle? Then you definitely want to listen to this podcast as we talk about kayaking along the River Shannon. Hi, and thanks so much for joining me today on the Traveling in Ireland podcast. I am really excited to introduce you to Mike Jones. He is the owner and head guide of My Next Adventure. Hi, Mike. How are you today?
Good, Jody. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. So, can you explain to people what My Next Adventure is and what they can expect?
So My Next Adventure is a company I set up in 2015 to offer guided kayaking tour experiences out of my hometown of Killaloo in County Clare, and we take people on the River Shannon and on Loch Derg.
And my girls and I had a chance to join you this past summer, and I'll be honest, it was my first time in a kayak, and I was a little nervous, but you made it really easy. It wasn't at all intimidating like I was kind of thinking it would be. And it was a great experience overall for a novice like me. Do you find that you have a lot of people who have never kayaked before that join you for your tours?
Yeah, sure. A lot of our clients tend to have either kayaked maybe once before on a holiday or on a school trip or something, but wouldn't in any way regard themselves as proficient kayakers. So we specialize really in taking people at a very slow pace in very comfortable, stable boats, so that they can really not worry about falling out of the boats or getting wet really at all, and they can actually enjoy the surroundings a lot more in that way. And it's quite a social trip as well, because we travel at such a slow, leisurely pace. People can chat and talk, and we can explain some of the local history and heritage and bird life and plant life and things like that. So really it's about putting people at ease and making them comfortable right from the start as soon as they sit into the boats, and that way they can enjoy the experience a whole lot more.
And it was a lot of fun. We went out. Tell me the route we took, because I'm going to mess it up. So tell me kind of the route we took, because I know we took like an old canal on the way back, right?
Yeah, so we're quite lucky in Killaloo that we have a stretch of old canal which was completed in 1799, and it's now disused due to a hydroelectric power station downstream, kind of raising the water level. So, but I won't give too much of the history away, so people have to come and get that themselves. But
exactly.
Essentially, yeah, we've got a piece of disused canal which stretches for nearly 2 miles, and that runs parallel to the River Shannon. So the route that we took would have taken in some of the canal and then some of the river also, and it allows us to use the river to travel downstream and use the natural flow of the rivers. So again, it takes the strain off people, and it makes sure that the pace is nice and easy, and it's not too stressful. People's arms don't get too tired, and then we're lucky that we can use the canal, which is quite still, to be able to paddle back upstream, and we don't have to fight too much of a current. And it also gives us a chance to see the different aspects of the river and the waterway by seeing the wider, more powerful river, and then also taking in the old disused canal and some of the hidden wildlife and the hidden wilderness that we have in there.
Right, with the older canal, there was a lot more tree cover, and I know we saw a number of birds, and just it was a really serene trip back along that canal.
Yeah, sure. It's like I say, it's largely disused, so there's not much traffic on it, not much boat traffic on it. So we're pretty much the only people that use it in our kayaks, and that means that when we're traveling so slowly and so quietly, we can get quite close to nature. And there's a pair of kingfishers, which are quite a beautiful bird and quite rare to see. But we can sneak up on them and regularly get views of them. And then there's a big grey heron as well, lives in the canal. And depending on the time of year, you'll maybe have some ducklings in the spring and some following the mommy duck around, or some swans with their cygnets around the place as well. So we're quite lucky that we can get up close to all the natural wildlife around the place.
And then we did, in between, going out and coming back, we stopped on a small island, and you made us tea, which was really nice.
Yeah, that's kind of one of the key parts of our trips. Again, in an effort to kind of keep it as easy and as less stressful on people's bodies as possible. Because, like we say, a lot of people haven't kayaked before, so it's quite daunting to think you're going to go kayaking for a 2 or 2.5 hour trip. But in fact, we stop off at a halfway point, and we carry with us a thing called a Kelly kettle, which is a kind of an old-fashioned backwoods way of cooking and heating hot water. So we can heat up some hot water and we can make some coffees and some hot chocolates, and then we also accompany that with some homemade cookies to refuel the bodies and make sure the energy levels are high enough to be able to get us back up along the canal and back to our start point again.
Well, and I loved that, when we stopped and, you really put the girls to work, helping you carry things and then finding sticks and helping you with the preparation. I think they probably did eat you out of cookies. They were quite tasty. But it was a really fun experience, especially, like I said, we had never kayaked before. Now, is that, you offer a family kayak tour, is that kind of your family kayak tour that we did?
Yeah, so that's pretty much the family trip that you guys would have done. So it's, like I say, it's about 2 to 2.5 hours in duration. It's designed for kids as young as 2 years of age. We've had little small kids that will be inside in the boat with their parents or with another adult. And then once they get to, but depending on how big they're, about between 8 and 10 years of age, we put them into either a bigger boat so that they have their own paddle, or we can put them, by the time they get to 10 or 11 years of age, they can actually get in a kayak on their own. So that allows them that little bit more independence and freedom. And we do a lot of that. We do a lot of the family trips, and it's, for me, it was something I was fortunate enough to grow up and be a Boy Scout and go out and light campfires and things like that, but it's not something people get to do all that often anymore. So I like to be able to include the family, get the moms or dads or the kids collecting firewood and helping me light the fire, and make sure that we serve up everybody with their hot drinks and enjoy the cookies then. And the cookies are there to be eaten and be refueled, so I'm always happy when I see an empty cookie tin at the end.
Now, I know that when we were chatting, you were telling me that you were going to start doing multi-day kayaking tours. Have those begun?
Yes, we did a couple this year, just as a pilot. We actually had 5 American ladies over, and we put a bespoke trip together for them on Loch Derg, which included actually an overnight in a castle, a local castle, which is on Airbnb. So we partnered up with the castle, a family restored castle, and they spent the overnight there, and it actually happened that one of the girls was her 18th birthday that night, so she got an extra special treat, got to be a princess for the night in her own castle for her 18th birthday. So that was a nice trip. That's something we're hoping to be able to offer next year on a more regular basis. And then we've also got a thing called the Loch Derg Canoe Trail, which will basically take up the whole lake and allow people to circumnavigate the lake in bite-sized chunks. And we'll be offering guided trips on some of those sections. Again, hopefully over at least one night and possibly 2-night trips for this coming year. But there's potential to expand that up to week-long trips, taking in other parts of the River Shannon and the other lakes further up as well. So for people who are used to doing longer trips and are into kayaking holidays and maybe use some of the lakes and waterways in North America regularly for their holidays, it might be something that they'd consider coming to Ireland and exploring our waterways by kayak.
That's exciting because now the River Shannon, I'm hoping I'm not going to get this wrong, is the longest river in Europe. Am I correct on that?
Not quite in Europe, in what we call the British Isles.
In the British Isles,
between the UK and Ireland, it's the longest river. So in total, it's about 360 kilometres, which is well over 200 miles, 250 miles or something. And it takes in 2 major lakes, Loch Derg being the biggest of them, which we're based on, and then another lake, Loch Ree. So the lakes alone allow a lot of opportunity for exploration. But if you were interested in doing, a descent of the River Shannon, that's something that we're hoping to be able to offer within the next couple of years as well.
Oh, that would be amazing. Now, on these multi-day trips, I know you mentioned the castle, which I imagine that was just an amazing overnight for those ladies. I can't even wrap my head around it at the moment. But what kind of lodging would you be looking at for, these multi-day trips that you are planning?
We're planning to offer a range of things, and I suppose some of it is to allow us to access different places, and some of it is to suit people's budgets. So we would hope to use local guest houses and bed and breakfasts in certain areas, and possibly package that on some trips where people aren't maybe looking for a camping adventure experience, but then also for people who are looking for that kind of authentic adventure where we go off into really wild parts of the lake and maybe camp on some of the islands. We'd also offer that. So we'd look to mix it up, I suppose. And like I say, it's not going to suit everybody to spend a few nights under canvas, and Ireland doesn't always lend itself brilliantly to multi-day kayaking trips. But it is something that we'll be mixing up. And then it also will suit people's budgets, because clearly if we're staying in tents, it'll allow us to offer it at a lower price than if we're having to use bed and breakfast and local guest houses and hotels and things like that. So that might suit people travelling. Families might choose to do something in a hotel, or whereas independent travellers and couples and things might look for more of a budget trip to do something in under canvas and in tents.
Fun. Now, do you term what you do adventure travel, or do you, or is it more relaxed travel in your mind?
I would consider it to differentiate us, I suppose, from other markets within the tourism world. I would consider what we do adventure travel, yeah, because we're travelling in an alternative way. We're not using any motorised transport or anything, and it does require people to be kind of willing, I suppose, to get a little bit cold and a little bit wet from time to time, although we try and avoid it, and we do everything that we can to make sure people do stay warm and dry. There is always that risk, of course, and we do take people into places where there's, maybe not running water facilities and flushing toilets and things like that. So from that point of view, it is an adventure experience, and people, like I say, have to be kind of willing to accept the fact that they're going to go a little bit off the beaten track, not for too long. And like I say, in relative comfort, but it's certainly not a 5-star hotel experience where you're sitting around or have access to maybe phone coverage, cell phone coverage and things like that, or Wi-Fi all the time. We want to get people out into the wilds a little bit so that you can actually maybe see the stars without any light pollution at night, or hear nothing but bird song and no passing cars or anything like that. So yeah, for sure, we do term it as adventure, and we're looking to expand that adventure all the time and take people into wilder and wilder places, and if they're up for it, we'll take them.
Now, I know that Ireland travel has changed a lot since my first trip there in 2002, and it does seem like there are more active adventures in Ireland now than there ever were before. Is that the case, or is it that as my children have gotten older, I'm just finally seeing it?
No, definitely. Yeah, you're right in that we have the market has changed here massively in the past decade and maybe a little bit more, and we have started to focus a lot about what Irish tourism. What I heard at a conference a few years ago, the 9 a.m. to the 9 p.m. It's the stuff that we do during the day and the things to do on holidays. And we spent an awful lot of time in Ireland focusing on driving people between castles and from the Cliffs of Moher to Bunratty and things like that, and they'd just look at something and then they'd stay in a nice hotel. And we're lucky, I suppose, that we have the hotel infrastructure and the bars and the restaurants and things now. And really the past 10 years has been about focusing on making sure people have something to do during the day, other than to maybe just look at things like the Cliffs of Moher or enjoy the lakes and waterways around the place, but to actually be able to get onto them and maybe work up a little bit of a sweat and get off the beaten track slightly. Because there's a lot of people out there who don't want to really sit on a road all day driving around the place for their holiday. They want to get somewhere, park up, and actually enjoy the scenery that they're in, and be part of the scenery and become part of the story of the landscape, as opposed to just, like I say, just looking at it from afar. So that's something that we're trying to capitalise on, and we know that the North American market, and there's a lot of people in the States who are looking to come to Ireland and see the classic things of the Cliffs of Moher and the Guinness Brewery and the Rocket Castle and things like that. But we're trying to take people slightly off the beaten track and explore a different part of Ireland, and it doesn't have to be your entire holiday, but for maybe a couple of days you can come and explore something that still has lots of the 40 Shades of Green and lots of mythology and castles, but you get to see it at a leisurely place and get to switch off a little bit more while you're here and enjoy the country from a slightly different aspect.
So now your family kayaking tour leaves out of Killaloe. But let's say somebody is wanting to spend a couple of days in that area, because I know that we've been through the area a couple of times but haven't really spent a lot of time exploring there. So what other things are there to do in that area? I know it's super cute.
Yeah,
driving through.
It's quite quaint, I suppose, in that still a small village, and it's reasonably untouched, and it has lots of tourist potential, and that's something we're trying to develop. Like in Killaloo itself, there's myself and there's another chap who has a small water sports business who offers stand-up paddleboarding, so that's something people can do. It's a little bit wetter than the kayaking trips, but it's still good fun. And then there's also a local tour boat, which is more leisurely again than what we offer, because you don't get wet at all, and they actually serve drinks on board, so you can go and explore the lake and get a narrated tour on that, which is quite comfortable. And then within Killaloo, there's a historic trail that you can walk. You can self-guide yourself around that and explore the town and some of the history, which dates way back to a couple of thousand years really. And Killaloo's original church, which is reconstructed in the town, it's 1,500 years old. And there's Brian Boru's fort. Brian Boru was the last High King of Ireland. An old fort of his, which is still in place outside, just on the edge of the town. And there's lots of kind of self-guided walking and things that you can do to explore the immediate vicinity of Killaloo. And then if you want to go a little bit further afield, you can drive around the lake, which is quite scenic, and stop off in places like there's a lovely woolen mill with handcrafted wool crafts along the shores of the lake, and there's a chocolate factory, and we have a place called Holy Island, which is an extremely significant historic site. And actually, the Bishop of County Clare is inviting Pope Francis over in 2018 to hopefully come and visit, but I don't know if that'll ever happen. But it is quite a historic and significant religious site, Holy Island, and that's quite spectacular as well to go and visit. There's a local historian there, Ger Madden, who offers tours, and he's the local guru in terms of history in that part of the lake. And there's lots of other little sites. There's an entire trail around Lough Derg of heritage sites, and you can access apps for that, and again, self-guide yourself to go and explore and day trip. And then we're not too far from the motorway, so we link into Shannon Airport, Dublin Airport, and obviously the connecting cities of Dublin and Galway and places like that. We're not too far from any of those either, so you can lose a nice place to base yourself and have nice quiet evenings if you're not into city life, but you can still dip in and out of some of the bigger tourist attractions and tourist cities, maybe for day trips, without having to overnight in them.
Right, yeah, I was thinking that you would be a nice base, Killaloo would be a nice base for, Bunratty or Limerick, even the Rock of Cashel, you could get to it quite easily from there.
Absolutely, yeah, they're all probably under 90 minutes driving to any of those attractions that you mentioned, so it's not really that far if you wanted to just day trip to those spots, and if you're self-driving on your holiday, with the motorway network now, you can really get around this corner of Ireland quite easily, without too much trouble navigating, hopefully.
Yeah, well, you get used to it relatively quickly. It's not as hard as people think, but, it just takes a little bit of a mindset, and then you're on your way.
Yeah.
Now, we've talked quite a bit about the kayaking and the adventure travel, which I think is incredible. It opens up so much more of Ireland for people to actually experience and not just, drive and see and go again. And I think that is probably one of my favorite things in the last few years is just, being able to experience it more, I guess.
Yeah.
And so I've been, very fond of that. And I know that you are a very active guy. You just came back from a pretty great trip, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. So I suppose I kind of try and practice what I preach in terms of adventure. So I do a range of different things, and I've done a number of kayaking expeditions over the years, and I've recently started doing some international trekking expeditions as well. So I've been to Kilimanjaro in September, and only last week I came back from Everest Base Camp as well, leading a trip out there. So
wow.
I had a group of Irish clients. So I love to be able to go and explore other places in a similar fashion to how I encourage people to explore Ireland, I suppose, which is slowly and integrating with the local culture and natural environment as best as possible. And it's also great to work with other guides from different countries, like the Nepalese Sherpas, to see how they operate and how they work. So I'm constantly trying to learn and upgrade my own skills as a guide to be able to offer the best possible experience here, while, like I say, having nice trips away and exploring different parts of the world and seeing some incredible scenery.
So now I'm going to give you the question that I give all of my guests, which are, besides your area, what are 3 places in Ireland that you really think visitors shouldn't miss?
Oh,
I know it's a tough one. I'm sorry.
Well, the first one is easy because although Killaloo is my current hometown, it's not my town of birth. So my original hometown is a place called Cove down in Cork, which a lot of people would have heard of because it was the last stop of the Titanic. So that's definitely somewhere that I would put on a list, anybody's list if they're coming to Ireland. Go and see Cork Harbour and see Cove, and experience all that has to offer. And it has an awful lot to offer. It's another place you could comfortably base yourself for a few days and enjoy it. Outside of that, I think up west, I think going to places like Clifton, Connemara, probably some of the best scenery in the country. It is a tourist hotspot in the summertime, but it's probably not as busy as some of the other places, and it is still has some real proper old Irish villages that you can go and experience and kind of enjoy really old culture and maybe even actually not have any phone coverage and things like that up there. It's a beautiful place to adventure to. There's lots of really nice walking and kayaking to be done up there. There's a friend of mine runs a company very similar to mine up in a village called Roundstone, which is a beautiful part of the world with some incredible beaches, probably some of the best,
on
golden sand beaches you'll see
Galway
anywhere in the world. In Roundstone, so it's in Connemara. Out past places like Spittle, all beautiful little towns and villages, and well worth exploring. And for a third one, and I'm trying to stay away from the kind of the classic hit list. A third place, Donegal is beautiful too, I suppose. Donegal and Kerry, both opposite ends of the country, the northwest and the southwest of the country, both pretty spectacular. But Donegal, if you're willing to drive a little bit and you get used to the narrow roads, then a drive up along the coast in Donegal, places like Slieve League, the highest sea cliffs in Europe, and again some really quaint little towns and villages and fishing ports to go and explore, and some of the best cliff views and beaches again anywhere in the world, I would say, and all parts of the Wild Atlantic Way, which I'm sure people on your side of the Atlantic are hearing about regularly when they hear about Ireland now. The Wild Atlantic Way has been a huge success for Irish tourism in the past couple of years, and the section in Donegal is to my mind one of the best bits of that.
Well, and Donegal just has that feeling of remoteness, and you're not going to run into a lot of tourists. I know that for me, the further north I go from Connemara, so really Connemara and north, the fewer Americans I meet.
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is kind of nice.
Donegal is kind of like our Alaska.
Yeah.
It kind of sticks up into the middle of the Atlantic, and it's just rugged and wild and remote. And there's a special breed of people who live up there. They're very nice, friendly people. They can be pretty hard to understand, even for fluent English speakers. They're pretty hard to understand. So I think that's part of the charm of the place. It almost feels like going to a different country, even for Irish people. And it's spectacular up there. And it's got lots and lots to offer, but it's still relatively unexplored, I suppose, compared to other corners of the country.
That's definitely true. Well, Mike, I want to thank you so much for taking the time in the middle of your day to talk to me. It's really, really been a pleasure, and I have great memories of our kayaking trip with you, and I know how well you do with families, so I wholeheartedly can recommend you to other families who are visiting Ireland. Now, if people want to get in touch with you, what is the easiest way for them to do that?
They can check out our website, which is www.mynextadventure.ie, and on that they'll find all the contact details, phone numbers, emails. If they're trying to contact from the States, emails are probably best because of the time differences. So if they wanted to drop an initial email and talk about dates or trying to make arrangements for any types of trips, I'll get back to them as quick as possible, and then closer to the time we can maybe arrange a phone call. And again, numbers are up on the website, so they can get me there. And on social media as well, people can check us out at the Facebook page. We're on Instagram and we're on Twitter as well. So we'll interact with people on any of those too if they want to get in touch, either messaging us or they can check out some of what we have to offer on there as well, some of our pictures and videos.
Perfect, and I will include all of your contact information in the show notes. So anybody who's interested in contacting Mike can just go to the show notes. Near the bottom of the page, we'll have links out to everything. And Mike, again, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. It was such a pleasure.
My pleasure.